Then realizing so rain source trigger with Itto attacks. How did you not realize that? Huh? I think people are still traumatized from Rhino. Yeah, I think this Abyss is overall, like, kind of cringe. Like, I didn't mind the Consecrated Beasts as much because their attacks were slower, right? And they were very telegraphed. Whereas these guys, their attacks are not telegraphed at all. Like, it's not dashing at the right moment. It's literally just a reaction check, right? Like, are you capable of reacting to something less than like a fifth of a second after you've seen it? And it's not like visually that obvious either, right? So it's not about getting the right timing. It's about reacting fast enough to dash on it, which like that's inherently, that's fine, right? The problem is those attacks also happen incredibly quickly one after the other, which makes it so that even if you know how to dash perfectly, you can't do a linear charge shot because you don't have enough time between two attacks. Which is cringe as fuck. Yeah, it's also like visually very cluttered, right? There's so many visual effects at the same time, especially with the three fucking spinny things around the room, that it makes it just hard to be able to see properly. That might actually be easier with low graphics. Maybe I should test it out. Like, this Abyss makes Zhongli better, right? But it doesn't make him better in a way where his, like, identity as a character that you get if you're struggling to dodge. Like, it doesn't focus on that identity. It's just like, hey, if you want to be able to have enough time to do a charge shot, you're going to need a shield. Which I don't think is, like, a great way to do this. Like, I get it, but I don't love it too much. Like, I much prefer Consecrated Beasts if you fix the hitboxes. Obviously, the hitboxes being cringe does not help. Why not taunts like Lynette or Amber as a defense option? Because they just don't work. Taunts in general are incredibly fucking finicky in Genshin. But especially against bosses, I don't remember the last time I've seen a boss actually target a taunt.
We mercs.
Okay, so they buffed Wriothesley's.
Whoever pays the most.
Wait,
is your new
that's a
boss.
pretty big buff, isn't it? That's a pretty big buff. That is actually a fairly significant buff. This
still have a special place in my
This is actually a pretty big nerf.
Morning, cool French
It's
scrimmer.
not that huge, but what does P1 mean? It's passive 1. It's the Ascension 1 passive. Because in most teams, you're going to get 2 stacks, right? And the 130% is the 2 stacks one. So it's effectively just like a 3-point-something-ish% nerf to his damage. Is it now 125 the third stack? That sounds fucking wrong. Because the third stack was 160. So it would say 160 to 125. And we'd need a new value for the second stack. That doesn't make any sense. So this has got to be the second stack. It's a very slight nerf, yeah, but I mean it's still relevant. Like, it's effectively, right? Because I think in most teams you are gonna end up with 2 stacks. Right, it's a 3.8%, 3.85% nerfed as damage overall. He just does this amount of damage less. Which makes sense, right? And then for Wriothesley, it's basically just a 6% damage buff. So Jeff, please reply, does Wriothesley's kit seem less standard now? Not really. But it seems less bad. 6% is massive? I mean, it's pretty big, yeah. Like, an underwhelming character being buffed by 6% is pretty relevant. A good character being nerfed by 6% doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, and then we got a buffed his best in slot. This is the charge attack damage per stack, right? So it's a total of 6% damage percent, which doesn't quite but almost offsets this nerf. Alright, 6% damage percent should be about, I mean, it can. It's gonna depend, but because at a baseline, right, you're getting 46.6 from Goblet, 15 from Wriothesley, and then at like 36 from the weapon, right? Like that's the minimum you're gonna get. And now it would be 42 instead. Which is about a 3% buff to the signature weapon. Which doesn't quite offset the nerf, but almost. Not every standard character is bad, some are even better than most limited 5 stars. I wouldn't use the word most in that sentence. That seems a little bit cope. A tiny little bit cope. It's like a Luffy statement. Cause you really have to stretch it, you know? You really have to stretch it. You really do. Gobble gobble no! Statement! I'm actually really hyped for Neuvillette. I feel like it'd be really fun in this event. I see the nerfs, yeah. They're not that big. It's like 3-point-something% nerf. That's fine. Like, it's a pretty sizable nerf in carry teams. But it's a pretty small fucking nerf in, like, Hyper Bloom and Taser teams. So, I don't really mind. How optimistic are you for Navia to help Geo as an element out? What do I think her kit would have to do? I am fairly optimistic that they're gonna try to do something with her. I think in a perfect world, they make her kit about construct. Like synergy with constructs and shit like that. I think that would be really cool. But they might just decide to do like a... They might just make fucking Itto number 3, or they might make a like Bloom thing, I guess. Okay. A way to like change the crystallize reaction, I think would be more boring than a way to work with constructs, but it could make for an interesting kit nonetheless. But whereas like Itto number 3 would be omega boring. If we get Itto number 3, I'm gonna morb. Personally, the one thing I couldn't live without is onion powder. And the reason for that is because I'm too lazy to cut. I hate cutting onions, but food without onions tastes like shit. So personally, I wouldn't be able to live without onion powder. Same with garlic. The thing about garlic is that garlic is very good, but it's not good in everything. Onions are good in everything. Like, if I'm cooking with someone else, I can do onions. I just can't cut them, man. Like, I become literally blinded. I can't see anymore. Like, cutting onions is dangerous for me because after, like, half an onion, my vision becomes so blurry because of the tears that, like, I can't see my fingers properly, and I'm gonna cut myself. Don't cut the root. Oh, I know, right? I know that you're supposed to, like, cut it... Like, not cut off the root, but, like, cut it sideways. And I do that. And it still doesn't fucking work, man. Yeah, maybe I should get some onion goggles. But that's too white, you know? I don't want to admit I'm that white. What makes the Primo Geovic app your favorite practice dummy? It doesn't fucking move. Like, it does move, but it's big enough that its movement most of the time won't fuck you over. And it has enough HP to survive a rotation for a bad team. Or, like... to let you at least do basically a full rotation for a good team. And it's not very dangerous. What do you think HOYO is wasting this much money and time into making different minigames and events? Well, they're not wasting a lot of money or time on them. Like...
I wonder what my...
They're reusing music that they've already used before, they're not even syncing it properly to the gameplay. And the actual gameplay has 3 different button options you can press. This doesn't take very long to do. The longest part is going to be making it look nice, but it's like... It's just a guy with a few... Like, there's just not that much, you know? But, like, the brunt of their spending on events like this is going to be the visuals, yeah. Will getting Itto's weapon make his damage good enough outside of burst to the point where he can feel good in the open world? I mean... Itto's damage without his weapon is already good enough for him to feel good in open world. Nothing feels bad in open world. Like, it's hard for something to feel... Open world enemies are really squishy. It's hard for a character who's focused on normal attacks to feel bad in overworld, even if... Like, Xiao doesn't really feel that bad in overworld when you're fighting, because you can use, like...
You called?
Like, when your burst is down, you can just do, like, this. Or, like, if you're fighting an enemy here...
Boring.
Oh, the inputs are different when there's no enemy, but... You do, like, this.
Useless.
Right, something like this. Alright, like you charge attack, jump backwards, E forwards, plunge it, or yeah, charge attack, jump backwards, E forward, plunge. Right? And you can do that twice, and like that's basically enough to kill every overworld enemy.